Hello, Revere, and welcome to another great show. And today we have another great guest. She's a young lady, a former council president, and believe it or not, she started on the City Council of Revere when she was only 18 years old. Jessica, welcome.
Hi, nice to see you, Morris.
It's an honor to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Right, now before we start, tell us a little about yourself.
Sure. So, like you said, I got elected at 18 years old in the Revere City Council. I was sworn in at 19 because my birthday was just after the election, or before the election. It's my 6th year in office, my 3rd term on the council, and it's been fantastic.
And you were a council president. That's awful young.
I was. So last year on the council, so 2015, I was elected by my peers as council president, and I served for a year, so it was fantastic, a great experience.
It was great to have you. I used to watch on TV. You did an excellent job.
Thank you so much.
Good. And I would like to ask you, and you could elaborate,
Of course.
what is the future for the city of Revere? And we do have a beautiful city.
I couldn't agree more. I think one of the biggest things for the future of the City of Revere is our economic development. The city has so much great residential development that's already happened and so many great families that live here. I think the next step for us is to develop the city commercially. So we need more restaurants, more stores, more places for our citizens to go to enjoy the city. You know, places down the beach, and I know the city's looking at some really big projects coming up that's hopefully really going to help push that and get more tax revenue in, because the reality of it is the more commercial development we have, the more tax revenue we have, and the more we can help our residents with their tax rates.
That's great, but I have to ask you this question.
Of course.
Mayor Arrigo, I know he liked the mayor, who's doing an excellent job, mentioned something, maybe I have it wrong, like about cutting for senior citizens off their tax 10%, you know, to give them, which will go on the ballots.
Yep.
Is that going to be, how's that going to work out?
So that was something that during his campaign the mayor discussed, and it's something that he's putting into action. So like you said, it would be on the ballot, I believe. And
November?
Yes,
yep.
And that's something that he made a campaign promise and delivered. So that will be a great advantage to our seniors.
Is that only for the city of Revere, or is that going to be for the whole state?
For the city.
For the city?
For the city.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay. Your father, Officer Sergeant?
Yes.
Sergeant Giannino, traffic.
Yes.
Tell us a little about him, because he's a great officer. I've met him. He's been on the show, and it's an honor to have him. And he's been on a long time.
Yes. So my dad has been on the police department for several years before I was born, so he's been on for over 25 years.
Wow.
He was with me last time I was in the show with you, so it's funny not having him here today, but he loves what he does. He's worked for the City of Revere, like I said, for well over 25 years. He specializes in traffic, so he does accident reconstruction as well as traffic enforcement. He's on the police motorcycle, which he loves, so he gets to escort a lot of, you know, important events if they're coming in and out of the city, or processions, parades.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now, Jessica, they're talking about, on the council, if I may ask you this, about building a new high school. Where would they be putting that new high school? Because they would have to build it, not what the old one is, because the kids still have to go to school. How would that work out? Can you explain that to me?
So that's something that we've been talking about for years, in a project that started long before I got on the city council. The school buildings have, over the past 10 years, grown exponentially. We have several new schools in the City of Revere. And overall, it's a comprehensive plan to look at what schools we have and what schools we need. So currently, the Lincoln School is one of the older schools that's being looked at, the high school, and the Beachmont and Garfield schools. You know, we just redid the Susan B. We have the Paul Revere that's new, the Hill School, the Rumney Marsh. So we have a bunch of beautiful new schools. So a big part of developing a new high school is looking at the city as a whole and looking at the real estate that we have as a whole and figuring out placement. So I know that they've been in communication about it for years. So they haven't come down to a final plan about where they would put it, but it's all a matter of where to move what and how to build it.
That would be great.
It would be, because I went to Revere High, and I know, I think the Lincoln School definitely needs to be updated before the high school, but I'd love to see it happen.
That would be great, but let me ask you, I've had people come up here and they've discussed, they've been in the council, and they discussed about the City of Revere having children going to school that do not live in the City of Revere. How does that affect our school budget?
So what happens is when a student starts in the fiscal year, you're allotted a certain amount of money for each student in the system. So as kids move throughout the school year, you say we have, I'm just going to ballpark numbers, say in a classroom of 25 kids, we're allotted $1,000 per kid. And again, totally made up numbers.
Right.
If 3 kids move out of the city during that time, or 7 kids move into the city, into that classroom, we still only have the same amount of money because it goes from the beginning of the year. So when it comes to a situation like kids that are attending the school that live in other cities, a lot of times it could be living with a grandparent or a relative or whatever the circumstance may be. Maybe they moved or some hardship in the family happened. The reality of it is whatever school system they were enrolled in the beginning of the year is carrying the cost of that child. So it definitely affects us. Thank God we have great truant officers in the city that help to maintain this and to make sure the kids are getting the resources that they need and that the taxpayer is not responsible for it. So it's all about balance.
Right. Before I get into one of your hobbies,
Of course.
you told me that you went to Italy in 2014, I believe.
I did.
And how did you enjoy that? But I want you to elaborate on that because I love to hear people when they talk about different countries.
Of course. So I was a member of the Italian Honor Society when I was in Revere High, and I loved it. And a couple years after I graduated in 2014, my old professor reached out to me and she asked me if I would chaperone a trip. So I chaperoned the Italian Honor Society's trip to Italy, and it was phenomenal. It was in April of 2014.
Right.
We started in the north in Venice, and we traveled south. So we went to Venice, Rome, Florence, Sorrento, and stopped at a million different places in between. I got to see some of the most beautiful sights I've ever seen in my life. It was a lifetime experience.
How long did you spend there on the trip?
10 days.
Just 10 days?
It was 10 days, and we were in a different city every 2 or 3 days. So it was really, really cool to stay in, Venice for 2 nights and then go to Florence for 2 nights and Rome and travel and get to see the kids, immersed in the culture and learning and really involved. And the best part was no one had cell phones since it was international.
Oh.
So it was great to see everybody really engaged in what was happening and following along with the tours and just taking in the scenery. It was beautiful.
That's great.
So beautiful.
Now tell us, Italy is an ancient country. I mean, it's old. Yep. What are some of the new things that they have there that you saw, like new buildings that went up? I know their churches are out of this world when they show them on television.
I think that the majority of the things we saw were more of the historical monuments. We saw the Colosseum, we went to Pompeii, we saw the Sistine Chapel, the Vatican, Vatican City.
Did you go to the Vatican?
We did. We went to the Vatican. It was unbelievable. So it was definitely more centered around those historical monuments. But the interesting thing was, you could be walking down a street in Italy with new cars driving by and scooters and all this technology around you, and then all of a sudden turn a corner and the Colosseum's in front of you. So there's that amazing balance of new and old, and it's just such a beautiful thing to experience.
That's great. Did you get a chance to meet the Pope at all? Or?
I did not. He wasn't there when we were there.
Oh.
But they showed us in the tour the apartment that he lives in. So when you walk through, you look out a window to the right and you can see, because he doesn't stay in the main building. He stays in an apartment. It was beautiful.
When you went to Florence, and I was in Florence many years ago, how was it like there?
Florence was beautiful.
It was, even when I was there, it was beautiful.
Beautiful.
And that was right after the war.
Yes. I can't imagine. I'm sure it's changed a lot since then.
Oh, I'm sure it has.
The food was amazing. I think my favorite part about Italy was everything that had to do with the food. We tried something different in every city, but in Florence in particular, they're known for their leather. Yep. So it was beautiful to walk through the marketplaces and see all the craftsmen and their leather goods and just experience that environment, being in the markets and walking around the city. It was beautiful.
I have to ask you this here. Italy is very famous for its music, for the operas and music. Do they still have places out there where people sit outside the cafes, eat, and people come along either and play with the violin or the accordion? They still do that?
They do. And in Venice, they have them on the different gondolas in the canal. They had them outside the coffee shops. It was
You
beautiful.
mean the entertain on the gondolas going
Yes.
down?
Yep.
That's pretty good.
It was interesting. It was great.
Great. I'm glad you like that. Now, you recently started a brand new job.
I did.
Yep, and you've been there not a long period of time. Can you tell us what it's like?
Of course. So I transitioned in my career about 6 months ago. So I'm working for a local printing company out of Malden now called M&M Label, and I am their account manager. So I manage all their existing accounts and deal a lot with their marketing and sales and maintaining current customers and finding new ones.
What did you major, if I may ask you, when you went to college?
Of course. So I went to Salem State. I graduated in 2010.
My granddaughter teaches at Salem State.
Does she?
Yep.
What subject?
History.
Oh, I might have had her.
Okay.
So I graduated in 2010. My degree was in English and Educational Studies. So I studied to be a high school English teacher. And then life...
Are you still looking forward to that eventually?
Maybe somebody down the road, but life kind of happens. You know, I really love what I was doing in politics and wanted to find a job that would be flexible so I could still do this as well. So the great thing about my company is the family-owned business. My boss started it 35 years ago, and he's very, very flexible. So I can, you know, go to my council events and be at meetings I need to for the city and still maintain that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now, did you take anything in political science, if I may ask you, while you were in college?
I did not. I did not. I never studied politics. It was always something that I was just attracted to. What I did do in college, though, is I was on the Student Government Association all 4 years. I was the vice president of student government
At Revere High?
in college at Salem
in
State.
college?
So that's really what kind of gave me the political bug, if you will, was being involved in student government and working with the Board of Trustees at Salem State and Pell Grants and all the things that we did for funding for the university.
I have to ask you this. I mean, getting elected when you did at the age of 18, how did it feel for you to come up to the city council, see all the gentlemen who were in their maybe late 20s, early 30s, and feel among them? How did you feel?
It was an incredibly overwhelming experience, but it was one of the best of my life. You know, growing up in the City of Revere, I've been here my entire life. My family's been here for over 100 years, 4 generations. These are the people that I watched on TV growing up, you know, and it was incredible for me to have the chance to serve with them and to learn as much as I did. And the great thing was they were very patient and very kind to me and really helped me become acclimated to it and, you know, helped me get through. And then eventually, after a couple of meetings, you kind of find your own way.
Right, I'd like to ask you, you said 4 generations, so
Yes.
that's your great-great-grandfather.
Yeah.
And who came from Italy. Do you know what he did in Italy or what it was like when he came here?
Yes, so my father's father, Christy, owned Giannino's greenhouses with his brother Chicky. His father came here.
Excuse me, was that
Yeah.
the Giannino greenhouse?
That's us.
I used to get tomato plants there years ago.
My grandfather grew them from seed. They were the best.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So
What
Papa's father came here from Italy, from Naples, around 1910. His mother and father came here. My great-grandmother grew pansies in our driveway, and that's how Giannino's greenhouse was born. So from her love of flowers and gardening, we opened up one greenhouse, and it grew to the Gianninos everybody knew and loved.
Is the Giannino flower still there?
No, it's been gone for over 10 years. My grandfather and his brother retired,
Oh.
but it was an amazing family business. We all worked there growing up. My father did. I was young, but I helped out. My grandmother ran everything there. It was really a big family effort, and it was great to grow up in.
I guess working over there on the flowers really grew on you there.
It did. It did. And you know what? You really have a different appreciation for it. And I'll tell you, one of the best things campaigning is I'll go places and people will go, Giannino, you guys had the best poinsettias or the best tomato plants. And I love that people remember that.
We used to get the gardenias. They would have carnations there, gardenias. Yeah.
The geraniums.
Yep.
We had everything. But I do miss it.
I miss it too. Okay. This I got to mention to you.
Mm-hmm.
We have a rodent problem in Revere.
Yes.
And people are supposed to use what you call rodent bags.
Yes, so they're the Mintex trash bags.
Yeah. Could you tell us about
Of course. So the rodent problem has been facing the city of Revere now for a couple of years.
That's all over Revere?
It's all over. When it first, I mean, it's been a problem for years and years and years. It was isolated into, certain areas. If there was new development or if there was a lot of construction happening, it was a lot worse. But now there's so much development going on in the city that and drain work, we're doing a lot there. We're under the federal consent decree, so we're doing all this drain laying work. So there's a lot of rodent issues from that, of course. Anytime you dig into the ground, it's going to happen. The problem is that these rodents have nowhere to go. So the health inspector, Nick, has been phenomenal. Anytime that we have an issue, I reach out to him, and he's great at going to residents and checking out their property, and if a property needs to be baited, he's great at helping with that. When any new developments happen, he's great at going out and making sure they're baited so many days before they break ground and that the property is prepared well. But unfortunately, it's a huge issue in the city. Even in my own neighborhood, it's something that I can see my neighbors facing. And
Which is what ward?
Ward 6, right across the street from the greenhouse.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's something that we've definitely all been aware of and trying to fix, but it's not an easy solution. I think that trash is definitely a big help in how we maintain it. So using sealed barrels and using those Mintex bags definitely help to deter the rodents. But
do you have to use steel barrels, or you can use any barrel to drop your trash?
They have to be covered. So your barrels have to be covered, and any exposed bags have to be in that rodent-safe bag.
So even if you have the rodent bags and you throw the bag in the barrel still has to be covered?
The barrels have to be covered, yes.
And if it isn't, what are the fines, if I may ask?
I don't know them off the top of my head, but I know there are different tiers for different violations across the city.
That's good.
Yeah.
So now people, do they buy the bags or they get the bags?
They buy them. They buy them. Most local grocery stores carry them in any city that has an ordinance for bags.
Okay. Now I have one thing for you. Talking about, well, let me get to this one first. Okay. This one here wants to know about the zoning laws, and he mentioned something about reviewing the zoning laws.
Yeah, so this year on the City Council, I was the chair of the zoning subcommittee. So I learned a lot more about the city zoning than I had known before. And one of the things I did, and one of the things the zoning subcommittee does, is we review all of the special permits and any special zoning that goes before the City Council. One recent project that we just had before our council was a dentist office on Broadway. And they're a local family that's operated a dentist office for over 60 years, and they wanted to expand. So it's great when you can see local businesses that have been in our community for so many years that want to stay here and want to grow and want to expand, but their property might not allow for it. So they came before the zoning committee to see if they could build an addition to better service their patients, get more new technology in. So it's very rewarding when you get to see projects like that that help the community and that keep businesses that have been here for 60 years here.
Here's a question for you. Broadway is usually a business district.
Yep.
So if somebody moves into a store that's on Broadway, does he still have to go to the zoning commission if he wants to change the business, let's say from a sub shop to a hairdressing shop?
It all depends on the zoning of that lot of land. So it depends how it's zoned.
Oh.
Typically for something small from like a restaurant to restaurant, there wouldn't be necessarily a change. A lot of times before the council, we see what's called a special permit. So that's if say they want to build an addition and it doesn't fit on their footprint, or say they want to put a different type of development. Maybe it's zoned commercially, but they want to put something that doesn't fit into that list of what is appropriate for that piece of land. Maybe it's an apartment so they can live above their business. Anything like that would be something that the zoning committee looks at.
Here's a good question for you too, Jessica. Ask her about adding more cameras on certain where accidents happen on the streets, such as coming out of North Shore Road,
Yeah.
where cars don't stop at the red light, they
Of
zoom
course.
right through.
Of course. So something that my father, of course, he's a lot of in the traffic commission and dealing in the police department and traffic, is we do have several cameras on different big intersections in the city. So you can see them on Broadway by Central Fire. There are some by the beach. There are some by the police station. And they're really great in terms of being able to help our police officers with accidents and car accidents and being able to document them. It's also great for public safety. I think the city could definitely use more in terms of public safety, especially in areas where people congregate. So down the beach, you know, for an event like the Sandcastles, it would have been great to have some more near the bandstand or near areas where people are gathering for safety.
Right. Now, how is the crime rate of Revere? I had a couple of councilors on here. They said it was pretty high with the MS-13 group. Is the police department can use more police, I guess.
The City of Revere Police Department and Fire Department can always use more police and fire. And over my time in the council, I can say that we've got to swear in many more police officers and firefighters than the city's probably seen in the past 10 years, which is phenomenal. But as the city grows, it's also important that we grow our police and fire departments. So in terms of our crime rate, compared to some of our surrounding communities, we're definitely not in bad shape. We have great community policing, we have great police officers, we have so many different task forces, whether it be the detectives, the drug unit, the traffic unit. We have so many different areas of our police department that are dedicated to certain issues. And in areas where you mentioned with like gangs, the good thing is our police officers know the kids that are involved, and a lot of them have great outreach in addressing it and working with them to resolve it. Is it an issue? Of course it's an issue, but every surrounding community is facing that issue, and we're lucky to have a strong police department like we do. Even though they're down on manpower, we're very, very lucky to have them as strong as they are so they can effectively deal with problems like that in the city, traffic, crime, everything, because they're our front line.
Jessica, here's a good question for you.
Sure.
There's the Point of Pines Fire Department that's not open now.
Yes.
Is there a chance that it might be open in the future?
That is something that I'm sure my colleague, Councillor Powers, would be incredibly happy to see. Since I've been on the council, that's been his focus. I think that it's incredibly important for us to open that fire station. We just built so many more developments down the beach. There are more apartments.
Right.
There are more people living on the beach. The beach is packed in the summer, which is, it's great to see people visiting our beach and that want to be here. But for public safety, it's so, so important for us to have the fire personnel needed, because the issue with the Point of Pines is one of the closest stations is, there's two, there's Freeman Street, and then there's Central Fire at Broadway. And either one, if they're responding to a call on a beautiful day in August and the beach is packed in the Point of Pines, it's going to take them a good amount of time to get down there. And when you're dealing with life or death situations, they might have, you know, 3 minutes before someone loses consciousness, or, you know, if they're unconscious already, before they need to be treated. So it's incredibly crucial to get that station opened.
Right. I think it would be a great idea to have it open too.
I do too.
Okay, now what I would like to talk to you about, let's see, we have about 5 minutes left, Jessica.
That flew by.
Let's see, I was going to ask you about, talk a little bit more about your education when you went to college, what it was like.
Sure. So again, I went to Salem State.
Right.
I was elected on the council when I was finishing up college. So that was interesting because I was juggling working full-time and being in school and being on the council. So I've always been used to balancing. I loved Salem State. I had a great education there. I love the people that I met. And the great thing about Salem State is it's a working university. So the professors were all working, the students were all working. It's a highly commuter-based school. I commuted every day, so I love driving down the beach every morning to get there. But Salem State was really great.
I have to tell you something. I was going to Broadway one day from North Shore Road, heading from North Shore Road to Broadway, and the traffic going down there was bumper to bumper. I mean, really bumper. And one of the fire trucks came out of the
Freeman Street?
firehouse, right near North Shore Road, that new firehouse. And he was trying to get to Broadway, I guess. The traffic was horrible, and there was no place where to move the cars. That's why, like you say, it depends on, you know, people's lives are at stake.
Of course.
That's why we need one way back. Like if he wanted to go the other way, he would run into heavy traffic going down the expressway or the highway. So that one on Point of Pines, I think, should be open.
Of course, and I think the city as a whole, traffic is a huge issue, and everybody's very aware of it. The police department is aware of it. Our residents are aware of it.
I'm sure your father is.
He's aware of it, and I'll tell you what, being on the council, one of the biggest complaints and conversations I have with residents are traffic. And it's incredibly difficult to travel the city if you're leaving Revere Beach at 5 o'clock and want to get to North Revere. It's going to take you 20 minutes to a half hour.
I'll give you a better example than that. Just coming down here tonight, going to Beachmont on the opposite side where the fire and police station are, the traffic was backed up from the North Shore Road way back to the highway. And one of my friends who came, he said he had to wait for 6 lights before he could make the turn.
I believe it. The traffic is, since I've been on the council, it's been an issue in the city, and it's definitely makes it more difficult for our residents, and it makes it more difficult for our business owners too, because a lot of times people aren't out shopping and having dinner and being in restaurants and places in the city because they don't want to sit in traffic to get there. So as a city, something that we definitely need to look at is how can we fix that? What can we create? What options do we have? You know, are there certain roads that can be expanded? Are there overpasses that we need? Are there, 1A? 1A is a nightmare, and I think that putting some infrastructure into whatever we can in the city of Revere would be a huge help for that.
We got about 2 minutes left. Take a minute and a half and just tell me, how do you feel now that we never got the casino that was going to be built on the grounds of Suffolk Downs? Just on the casino, forget about anything else.
Of course. I think that the fact that the city of Revere didn't get a casino was...
It was devastating.
It was devastating for a lot of people. I think it's tough because the bottom line is Revere was faced with an ultimatum. Either we get it or ever it does, and if we don't get it, we're in a really tough position. And the bottom line is we're in a tough position because we're not protected right now. We don't have a mitigation agreement. We don't have a host community agreement. So the benefits that all the surrounding communities are getting from a casino, Revere's not. We're not getting money for our infrastructure. We're not getting all the things that we could have received if it was us.
That's too bad, Jessica.
It is.
Jessica, we got about a minute and a half left. Take a minute to yourself. Do whatever, say whatever you'd like.
Well, thank you so much for having me on your show,
It's been
Morris.
a pleasure and an honor.
It's a pleasure being here and being with you, and it's great to see you out of your element in the senior center, because normally I get to see you when you're there and DJing and making everyone there happy. So thank you for everything you do for
Almost
the city.
everyone happy. Some of them I don't succeed. But
well, it's noticed, and we appreciate everything that you do for our community.
right, Jessica, I want to say God bless you and good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on our show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And God bless the people of Revere. God bless the city of Revere and our military. But most of all, God bless our great country, the United States of America. And thank you till the next time. Keep tuned. You'll see some great people coming on here.